reality, um, and believes in strong, healthy children. The idea that we've created technology that lives for us, that we live on phone screens, that we have more treatments than we ever will cures, treatments that the amount of billions of trillions of dollars we spend on keeping people synthetically alive, when we could easily take all of that away, let a massive amount of people that are deficient, that are invalid, die, and then we could invest that in infrastructure, schooling, charities, and rehabilitation for people that don't need to synthetically be alive. That if put in better circumstance, imagine how good their life could be. You know, um, that's why I call it the winner principle, where essentially nature is you have a sick, malnourished, deficient deer that is born with a bad leg. Sure, it's terrible. It dies in the winter, but notice how in the spring it's all these healthy, beautiful, innocent deer that eat the grass and are alive. That's Mother Nature. That's nature worship. Civilization is basically punishing the deer that are healthy, that have good bones, and making it so after so many generations you have nothing but deer that are born with extra limbs and have like scoliosis and are just twitching and like not mentally there. And then when the civilization can no longer support itself, there's a mass extinction event where the walls, the infrastructure, everything falls down and nature consumes it in an overwhelming rapid rate, and everyone dies, including those that shouldn't have died, and no one wins. Whereas you allow nature to run its course, you submit. I've had vegans say to me, "You eat all this raw meat, you drink blood, you eat raw organs. Tell me, how would you feel if an animal ate you?" And I'm like, that's actually a good kind of subject. I believe that man eaters are not a problem. We kill so many predators that eat villagers, tigers in India, polar bears that actively hunt humans. And I had this dream. It was a spiritual experience where I was walking through a trail. And in the dream, I see a bear cub, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And this giant mother bear comes on me and just like rips my face off and is eating me. And then I wake up in a hospital, and the doctor's like, "You're alive because of this man." Because before I pass out, I hear a gunshot, and there's a hunter that saw this thing happening. And in the dream, he's like, "Are you all right, bud? If there's anything you need." And I look up at him, and I'm like, "You killed a mother that was protecting her child. What right do you have to do such a thing? What the fuck is wrong with you?" In the dream, I turn into a giant grizzly bear and I rip his face off and I start killing the hospital staff. And now his children will grow up without a father, just as these bear cubs will grow up without a mother. Balance, checks and balances, nature. So, it's like the way I see it is, wouldn't we be better off if we specifically protected animals that were man eaters? So I'll say to vegans, absolutely. As long as whoever is, eating me is feeding their children, if they use my skin for tools, notebooks, things like that, clothing, if they use my bones, if they, after eating the flesh off my bones, if they like chop up my bones and like boil them in a pot to create broth, assuming this is a non-human species and this isn't cannibalism, in this hypothetical, and as long as they eat, like my eyeballs have good nutrition, and this is part of the reason I'm getting my tattoos removed, is I feel bad because, when I get a sky burial and birds eat my corpse, they'll have to cut off my skin and burn it because I don't, my tattoos might poison the animal. I feel really bad about that, like I can't fully give myself back to the primordial womb. It's and as a vampire, it's really saddening. I regret my tattoos, but I said, well, the thing is, I am meat, I am flesh, I am an animal, I am protein, carbs, some carbs at least from carbs I've eaten, full of good bacteria, very nutritious. I'm sure I could feed a family of 5 with my corpse. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I would hate whoever killed the animal that killed me. It's so weird, and we kill animals, and it's like, oh well, you know that's what we do. But then an animal kills us, and we project and anthropomorphize them into demons, into monsters. That one leopard, I think it was, or jaguar in India, they called him, or they called her, Shaitan. And I'm like, this was just a hungry cat that was living its best life. Why are you calling it Satan? So yeah, it's just like, no, absolutely, I'm fine with this. So I look at the COVID, all the thousands of people that were dying, and I'm like, this is beautiful. This is nature reclaiming the earth, and people, I'm a collectivist. I believe in the triumph of humanity, but we can only triumph. We can only conquer the stars and the Milky Way and Andromeda if we form equilibrium. Otherwise, we will all die before we can even conquer other planets and other forms of life and subjugate them to our will. So we need to learn how to submit to the will of nature before we can imperialize alien civilizations. We need to have a type of collective humility and know that we are just flesh and meat, that we are animals, just like the animals we eat. So I refuse to wear the mask because I'm like, if nature, if God, the all, decides that I am unworthy of life, then who am I to question the will of God? You know? I can just reincarnate into a healthier body. And then it was revealed that the vaccines were actually killing people more than COVID, that blew my mind away. I was like, oh, I guess, I was right in some regard for different reasons, I guess. But no, I was thinking, this is a good thing. The amount of people that are dying, the only thing I'm sad about is that not enough people are dying of COVID, right? So, and I never got COVID. I never got sick from it. Actually, no, I did towards it was a new strain, but I went through it unfazed, and I had people cough on me. I asked people that I knew were sick to cough on me so I could spread it. And I'm not sure how many people might have died because of me spreading COVID, but whatever. To me, worshiping the all, worshiping God, the omni, the three omnis, is knowing that there is nothing higher than nature, right? To submit before the eternal tide, to look upon existence and go, we are the divine, looking at reflections of itself. Which reflection is better than the other? If it's all self-actualization and God learning to know itself, then it should look upon the best reflection. And I remember, people are like, they'll hear my edgy philosophy and they'll just say, how about you actually put that to the test? If you believe in this type of social Darwinism, why don't you do this? And I did this where, at my old apartment, when my lease was up, I said to myself, what kind of use am I to my nation, my collective? What kind of use am I as a person? And in the face of nature, I want to be judged not by gods nor men. I want to be judged by the thing that created my species, right? The most sacred, beautiful thing, the eternal primordial womb. So, or Tiamat, Kali, Diana, just the mother. So I went homeless, dressed up in a Templar outfit and donated 10% of my income to charity and lived homeless during the winter on purpose. I nearly died of frostbite, almost lost digits. And I rode through below zero temperatures, sleeping in a tent outside, shivering my ass off. And that I had friends and family that were saying to me, oh, you're delusional. This is sad. Please don't do this. My own mother was like, you're going to die. She would stay up restless every night, just crying, thinking about me being out there. But I survived the winter, and after that I was like, okay, I am worthy of being alive, right? I did this with the intent of I'm unworthy, so if nature decides, I die. If I live, then I live, and that's a better judge than any judicial court in any form of civilized society. That's the best thing to do, which is why I admire the Spartans sending their children off into the woods. If they come back, they'll make civilization stronger. Nature will bring back its best, and nature will consume our worst. That's how you build a functional civilization. That's how you build civility. That's how you build morality, culture, art. That's how you create the best, by cultivating the best, by rewarding the best, by creating a world worthy of our children, and creating children worthy of a beautiful world. You know, it's not to say that I wanted to do this to live or because I had a death wish, but both. I wanted to think, I thought, you know, I'm not sure if I should die. I'm not sure if I should live, right? Just looking at it analytically and going, what do I have to offer, right? And I found that, during that experience, I probably came the closest to God that I ever had. I felt like God was with me in that experience, and it was a very healing experience. The weakness was frozen off me, and I emerged something new. I was reborn. I survived the long night. It's winter. I think the winter principle, if we applied this, it would be so good. My genes aren't good. And honestly, I've said this to my mother. I said to her, from a logical, ethical point of view, I said, you would have been better off getting an abortion, because the health problems I've inherited have made me not eligible to join the army. It has made my life a living hell. And I do my best in spite of all of that. But it's selfish that you chose love and sex over your own child, over future generations, that you deciding to have kids with the man you love led you to basically fucking all of civilization. I'm in the process of getting a vasectomy. My fiance, she agreed to this. We're going to get a donor, a genetically healthy specimen. So when I raise my children, they will be Ubermensch and not Untermensch. My children will be healthy. They will be balls of joy. They won't need glasses. They'll have better eyesight. They won't have physical problems. They'll be able to run. They'll be able to do cardio, something I've never been able to do. They'll have good genes. They won't have Alzheimer's like I'll have. And to choose civilization and your collective over yourself, to get your nuts snipped and to raise another man's child, that's what you have to do. That's the obligation we have towards our species, to see our species, our collective, our children be entitled to the best future possible. So that's the difference between universalism and right-wing pantheism, is that it's a distinction. We're not all in the same journey together. The nature of the cosmos is cosmic bodies being destroyed and less cosmic bodies being produced by that entropy, but those cosmic bodies being produced being, and nature, it's a continuous cycle of every species on Earth being made the healthiest it can be. And then we stand out of place. Who are we to defy nature, to defy the nature of God, right? So yes, I believe we're all part of the same type of, unified reality, the source, or as someone I know would say, the grand infinity, right? But we're all a part of one reality. So how does this play into psychic vampirism? So physically, I am connected to God, just as you are. But spiritually, right? Spiritually, I believe the spirit world and the physical world are one thing. There is the veil, which is the distinction between the two, but we live in the same reality. And people, they're anti-samsara, or people in the left-hand path that want to become, God. So people that either want to become Buddha or the next Satan hate this world. And yet, whenever you do demonic path workings in Goetia and the Qliphoth, the only thing daemons offer you for your apotheosis is more access to this world. And they'll give you their thrones. They will give you all of this useful power and this ability to become a literal demon in exchange for access to here. And somehow that flies over their heads, right? And then the people that, believe in leaving this world to ascend, these are people that just don't enjoy beauty, so they want to separate themselves from it. They want to separate themselves from suffering, which, go ahead, become a part of the all. But God is not self-aware. So essentially all you're doing is dissolving your consciousness into everything and thus becoming nothing while becoming everything. And then you might learn every bit of knowledge. You might be depolarized and you're just heavenly. But my question to you is, what have you learned if you learn nothing? Whereas if you stay in samsara, you learn a thing or two. You can store that in a book. You can, why this hate of the material world? I'm an anti-materialist, as it's part of my political beliefs, but come on. Come on. It's a part of the same dynamic, right? I would argue that this world is a refuge. It's a cradle. And our firmament isn't a prison. It's a wall to protect us from what lurks on the other end, like Yaldabaoth, the Archons, the Demiurge. We are protected within our greater sphere of Midgard, and it's a beautiful existence, and it's a privilege to be here, and that's a big part of vampirism I'll get into. But essentially, our souls are all connected to divine source. I'm gonna break this video. I'm gonna stop here, but in the next video, I'll get into what the soul is, what the spirit is, and what our spiritual connection to source is, and what that means for being a vampire spiritually. So, let's see here.